record that I understand exactly what we're doing here, which is a new approach to a problem that definitely needs a new approach. The way I see it, what we're going to be doing is teaching some of our students things that other students might have known when they came into the building that these students have yet to learn. And I'm not willing to throw anybody out of school. You know, it's easy just out of sight, out of mind. Let's concentrate on the kids that are quiet and get everything that they're told. I don't think that's why we're here. I think we're here for every single student.
Absolutely.
That's why, and I know as you pointed out, this isn't a philosophy, this is the law.
Yes.
And we certainly should look at any alternative and every alternative so that all kids can be included.
Yes.
I'm not happy with the way this was written at all.
Sure.
But that's not up to me. Now it's up to me to try to find an approach that will produce a result. And I just want to say for the record, I think this is the right approach, and I think you're the right person to be in charge of this, and I'm going to be looking forward to your work and the results of your work, because this is a problem that we need to have an eagle eye on.
That's awesome. Can I share that the goal is, you talked about specific and certain kids. That's why the goal is to train all of our educators to look through a trauma-sensitive lens. So when that student who's experiencing trauma can receive a high level of support, the goal, I mean, we know some young people coming to the schoolhouse, you expect them to have a certain behavior, but in some instances they don't. You got to reach down deep and teach, and it takes a lot. It's hard and it's difficult. We don't want to give the impression that this is about to just change. It will change, but we don't know how long. You got to plug it into the GPS and see what the navigation system says. We're plugging it in right now, and we're going to try our best. We're going to align ourselves with the best educators possible to meet the vision of this. We're going to be better in the future. Our better days, I believe, are in front of us. From right now, we're going to get better tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But we need mastermind alliances about rethinking this thing, because bottom line is we are suspending.
I'm all for rethinking this thing, but I am not all for pulling the energy out of the kids that aren't creating a problem to pretend that the ones that are creating the problem need another chance at their expense.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's what Dr. Weaver spoke to.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Madison?
I just had a few thoughts cross my mind as we're sitting here, being the dialogue got a little deep onto it. When I was a student here in the district, I remember spankings were allowed, paddleboard, and you minded your manners very well, or you didn't very well, and the paddle came out. Over time, that had changed into in-school suspensions and expulsions, and it seems we're now turning the crest point of a new way of discipline. And I just feel like the most important thing we all can do at this point is embrace the change and understand that times have changed, and we all need to change our thinking and jump out of the box. And I'm looking forward to having something new and something stable for the staff. And I'm actually excited to see that there's actually a program being put together and have a foundation there. My concern is, as we sit here talking tonight as a board, I'm not hearing buy-in from us, and we represent the district. We are the leaders. And if we don't give buy-in and support to our superintendent for her to pass down and to Dr. Tonsel and to everyone else, how do we expect the rest of the staff and the new hires to come in and implement this program? If we don't buy into something, we're going to continue with nothing, just like we've had. We have problems. We've all admitted we've had problems. Discipline has been an issue. Right now, what I'm hearing tonight is Dr. Tonsel presenting a solution to improve it. I'm just asking the board to give it a chance, give it an opportunity. It's something. We have something before us to make our district good. No. Unless somebody has other ideas out there, maybe another study session. If somebody wants to do some research and bring something else. But I just get concerned that we spend a lot of time condemning some of the information brought forth to us that's pretty exciting information that are great tools that we're getting rolled out. I mean, I know we have a lot coming to us pretty quick, pretty fast, and we had a lot of broken pieces everywhere throughout our district and a lot of various levels. And it might be a little bit of hyperspeed for all of us.
May I
So Mrs. Medill, and then Mr. Cox, and then yourself.
Thank you.
Write down your stuff, you don't lose track of what you're saying.
So, I mean, I know we all have questions and concerns about it. It's just sometimes maybe if we're mindful to sit on those questions and concerns and think and give things a chance and an opportunity, maybe look at things a little bit more optimistically rather than pessimistically. That was just my thought for it, and I appreciate all the information you've had, and both of you tonight. Everything's been crisp, clear, eye-opening. I've liked all the presentations tonight and the information. I feel like we're moving in a great direction, and I do feel like it is fast, it is new, and I sense a little bit of fear and excitement at the same time, and from what I hear out there in the community and with staff, it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if we all just keep pulling together, we have nowhere to go but up.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Madison. Mrs. Medill.
I was gonna say, I've been pretty quiet at the last couple of meetings because it just hasn't been necessary. I've been on board with this right along. Because, you know, after all, I was in the classroom forever, and everybody knows I was in the classroom forever. And I saw the problems back then. But I was one of those people that came highly trained for my position, and I dealt with my own discipline inside my classroom. So if a kid was suspended out of my core group, it was because they screwed up in another classroom. And I would be very disappointed in them when that would happen because it wasn't necessary. Kids make bad choices, they shouldn't have to pay with suspension. And then there's the kid who, you know, like you said, repeat offenders because they know if I do this again, I'm gonna get another 3 days and I'll get to stay home and play games on my whatever. And that's what I wanna do because I don't wanna be in the classroom. So, you know, we need to attack a problem whenever we do. And you heard me tell the young lady and the rest of the representatives from Wayne High when they were talking about guns and that, we have to attack problems from all sides, not just one way. We have to do it from all sides. And I'm real happy with the Family Resource Center because they're helping parents also. They're one of the support systems besides social workers and that work with the kids, but you still have to work with the families. So whenever we have a kid with an issue, we attack it from all sides. And I'm not hearing a lot of negativity here. I'm just hearing a lot of people with questions, and maybe it does come across as negative sometimes, but you know, it isn't. In order to truly understand, you have to ask those questions. Otherwise, you go out of here with false information or inaccurate or whatever information, part information. You want the whole picture and you want to make sure that your concerns are addressed. And I get that. You get that because you get it from all sides. You get it from the parents and the teachers and everybody else. So, you know, don't confuse asking questions as anything else other than I need information. But I'm all on board with this. You know, it's what we've needed right along. And you know that there are people that don't quite get it. And those are the people that we have to raise up. And if it requires going to some of the senior people who have been through all kinds of behavior trainings from everything that just came off the news to what just came through as a new technique that I swear I did 20 years ago, you know. All they did was just reinvent it, stick another colored picture on the front and package it as something new. No, not really. So we need to ask those questions because if we can't get our answers here, the next person won't have a clear answer either. This also helps him hone his skills. for answering those tough questions when a parent comes at your face and they're not listening to the answer. So we need to keep on our toes, and we need to keep asking those questions.
Okay. Mr. Cox?
As I look at Dr. Townsend's matrix with the, basically it's a track to run on, just as Ms. Peck and Ms. Curry were explaining about what teachers and administrators need in order to find their way to the solution of the problem. The kids need to have a way to find themselves. They might never have had anybody talk with them about self-guidance and self-management and setting goals and being responsible to yourself, and it is cultural in every way. It's not that they're not able to or don't want to learn. It might be that nobody's ever taught them how to tie a tie. They just don't know. And they need some guidance, and they need someone to look up to. And if that's a person at the school building that's trained in this and understands and can spot those kids so that they don't have those behaviors in the first place, that ultimately is the best solution. And I totally agree with Sally. This is exciting. You sound excited when you talk about it. It is exciting. It's a way to a solution to a problem, and I'm very happy about it, and I'm eager about it.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes. This is a study session, and so this is the place to ask appropriate questions. I just want to say for myself personally that I affirm you in your job and what is happening here, and I think it's great. And no question from me should be construed as moving against the process in any way. Just have a great concern for those who teach and those who administrate in our district. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Dr. Tonsel?
Oh, I was done.
Okay.
I
All
wanted
right. There's no more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I put a kind of an exclamation
you
point
can.
on that? I'm gonna kind of bring this all around together, because the next piece is going to be how we fund these efforts and moving forward. And I thought that it was going to be important to also talk about the money aspect, because we want to know, like, where is all this coming from? How are we going to do this? But I do want to comment on a couple of things, just because I think it's necessary. During this school year, we have seen ebbs and flows in our discipline matrix, in our discipline numbers. We've been watching them every week. For example, from last week to this week, we had an increase. I want to say it was 60%, if I'm right, Mrs. Peck, from this morning. So we saw an increase in the last couple of weeks of 60% of the
Are you
number.
saying 60 or 16?
60.
Okay.
60%, which this time of year is typical, so that's not, it's not like I'm going, but it's still kind of high considering our numbers were already high. So when we see an increase of that level, what it tells me is that, one, kids are tired, adults are tired, and we really need, this is the time of year when we have to dig deep with some of this work. It also tells me that what may be also working is the piece I've been commenting on around us getting very streamlined in what we put into the system for disciplinary efforts. So Mr. Albrecht has been working with our principals on what is it that you put inside of the computer? Because everything obviously these days comes out of a computer. And what is it that you put in the side of the computer? What is the difference between being out of assigned area at John Glenn versus being out of assigned area at Franklin versus being out of assigned area at Wayne Memorial? And what we were finding is that was 3 different definitions. So if a kid at one school would have one thing happen, if you went to another school, the exact same thing you were doing, it would be coded differently. You'd have a different amount of discipline, and some could be as much of as a suspension. Others would handle it through restorative practices. Others would do a consult where you counsel with the kid and their parent. So it really ranged. And not that we do not want to have that range, but we want to have some consistency in that. And so that's part of the initial phases in this data gathering. I do want to say that when we know about someone who has put their hands on an adult, it is handled expeditiously and appropriately. And so we do not tolerate that. At the same time, we have to always look at each situation through an investigative eye, because we have to look at what happened in this situation to get to that point. Why did it get to that point? There are some cases where it's clear and cut. You're done. You're not going to do that. It's unacceptable. And I have received those calls as recently as about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago now, where I received a call, and we're not going to restore anything at that point because of what this student did. There was no conversation. Yeah, we considered it. I considered not doing it because at this point, it's not okay. There are other situations where we delve deeper into it. We go, okay, what's going on in the background of this situation? And we need to make those determinations. Part of what we don't do well here in Wayne Westland is communicate back with our teaching ranks and others inside of the building what happened. So it leaves people to wonder. When I see that child just come back in my room, and I can admit, as an administrator, it was a very hard task to get a handle on. As a teacher, it's probably the most frustrating thing because I would see my fellow teachers go through it. That kid, when we walked back, and you're like, so what happened? They walk back, smiling and giggling. Wait a minute. You come back smiling, giggling with a lollipop, and I just sent you out with whatever it is that just happened. So we are working on getting better at having those communications after the fact. So because absent information, people fill in their own. And so we have to really work hard at that. So there are several different layers to this, but I want to make it very clear that if someone puts their hands on a staff member, a teacher, an administrator, it is unacceptable. And it's not something we can always immediately go for expulsion, but it is definitely something that we have serious conversations about, and we need to do something about it. I'm not going to say immediately at this point it's not in our board policy or in our admin regs that we go immediately to expulsion, and we can't put it there in that way without considering restorative practices because of the law. But it doesn't mean that you put your hands on a teacher and it's just no big deal. That is not the case at all. I can speak personally in closed session, obviously not here in front of around specific cases where we have immediately gone for expulsion or withdrawal in lieu of expulsion for students who have handled themselves in this way. And it's not always a fun and easy conversation. I can speak to one that I had in my office till about 8 o'clock one night, a parent who was appealing it, and the appeal didn't go through because you put your hands on a staff member. And plain and simple, it's not going to be okay. But I am wondering if the same problem is happening, and I'll just be open about this because our learning is transparent. I'm wondering if the same problem may be happening that's happening at our school sites may be happening with our Board of Education. And so part of what we addressed this morning is how do we communicate those various issues? Because those they don't always come to a board level. They don't always even come to my level because the staff knows when to deal with it, and they, just let me know either through their status reports. But if that's something that we need to communicate more on so that you as a board have a better picture of what's happening with some of those discipline issues, we can. We did talk about that this morning, like what is our communication mechanism. But please know that if anybody puts their hand on a staff member, and it's reported, because it's not always reported. You're right. And it's reported, we do deal with it effectively, and we do not tolerate anyone putting our employees in danger. So I just wanted to point that out.
Any concerns or questions for Dr. Holt after she made her statement?
Well, only that you raised a good point. To what extent does the Board of Education, I guess I'd like our president to know so that we have a resource if we want to know. Otherwise, we know that you're dealing with it. Obviously, by what we've heard tonight, we know that you're dealing with it. And we're not administrators, but we would like to have access to this information. If it's, especially in light of the particular instance which we're probably all talking about, the community wants to know, and the community's going to ask. So as long as I have some place to ask, I don't need it from you,
Yes.
Dr. Holt.
No problem. And just know that because of FERPA, we cannot always share, and that's where the
I'm
community
thinking
challenge
because of
comes in.
FERPA, we
The
should
community
know.
always wants to know
Yeah.
what happened, and literally, we cannot share with those incidences with the students that were 17 years old, because based on state law, a 17-year-old is considered an adult. The police can share. I still can't say anything
Yeah.
because then it puts our district in liability. Even though the police said it, even though it was on the news, I still cannot say anything because then it opens our district up for them to be able to sue us, and we're not going to put our district in that kind of position just so people can know what happened with somebody else's child.
Yeah. Finance Committee appreciates that.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay, moving on to item number 376.18, negotiations and budget. Mr. Larson Schreiber.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Tonight I'm going to go over the 2017-18 budget update and look at next year's budget. I'm currently reviewing the 2017-18 budget and amendment for review by the Finance Committee and subsequent presentation to the board at the board's meeting, June 18th. As a reference, going back, when preparing for negotiations in the spring of 2017 and on December 19, 2016, I projected a $11.4 million ending fund balance for 2016-17. The actual ending fund balance for 2016-17 was $12.1 million, a difference of $700,000, which is 0.7% of our expenditures. This $700,000 variance from 2016-17 accounts for the variance in 2017-18 original projection of $13.4 million on December 19th, 2016, to the January 2018 budget amended ending fund balance of $14.1 million. At this point tonight, the ending projected fund balance may vary for this year due to several large pending contractual items, the largest of which is attendance incentives for several bargaining units. The actual amount of these incentives will not be known until the last day of school and will impact salaries and sub-costs. Current projection for eligible staff totals approximately $1 million, most of which is already budgeted. Other variances are the result of staffing changes throughout the year. As outlined in the January budget amendment, general fund staffing changes are being funded from the $1.1 million portion of the enhancement levy allocated towards instruction. This aligns with the district's strategic plan for student behavior and growth, investing in people to implement and support change instead of things, such as computers. Any questions on any of that, or no? Okay, I'll go on to the 18-19 budgeting. For 2018-19, we are implementing full implementation of zero-based budgeting to link funds to student achievement. This type of budgeting provides more autonomy to schools and departments within the district to align expenditures supporting their school improvement plan. By this Thursday, May 24th, I, along with Andre, Rebecca, Jen, and Kate, will have met with all building principals to review their budget and budgeting process. All building budgets should be available by June 1st for executive cabinet and cabinet review. This is a tight timeline, but an important process to implement now and for future years. Dr. Holt talked about funding of new positions. Funding for the one instructional coach and 2 at the high schools, one climate and culture coach, again, 2 at the high schools, and 1 parent coordinator at each of our buildings will be funded from grant funds. K-8 buildings are provided the ability to maintain intervention specialists for 2018-19. All these programs will be monitored and evaluated through academic return on investment, or ARI. Okay, I do want to, it's not on the agenda, but I want to give a quick update on the bond.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. The bond committee will meet this Wednesday to finalize the application to the Department of Treasury. A timeline at that time will be developed with dates, and they'll be provided after our Wednesday meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Cox?
The source of the grant funds, Jim?
Title I, Title II, and at risk.
Any other questions, concerns? Does that end your report?
That ends it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Moving on to item number 377.18, Superintendent Report. Dr. Holt?
So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight, and thank you to our executive cabinet team for all the hard work they put into these reports, because compiling this information and presenting it on a board level is not always as easy for us, because we're used to presenting at the staff level. So taking it up a notch is not always easy. So thank you all for all your hard work with that. I know it's not always comfortable to come and present at this level, but you did a great job, and I appreciate you for that. I also want to acknowledge that we have graduations coming up this week. And while graduation is a very exciting time for many, it can also be a very stressful time. So I just want to remind everyone to relax and enjoy the moment. This is a moment for our kids and for our families. And while spending an entire day, I know, is not always the most fun, but for us and for our families, it's a huge accomplishment. So I want to take this opportunity to congratulate our seniors on their hard work and what they've done to be able to reach this point. I also want to congratulate their parents, because we didn't make it through 13 years of school alone. We did not. Our parents had to do some work. And having a 17-year-old at home who I can't wait to graduate next year, I'm just saying, I'm very excited for him to go. I love him dearly, but you know, he's at that age. But it's not always easy to make those right decisions. It's not always easy when your child acts up. And as a parent of 7 kids, I know you guys have seen the pictures on Facebook. You can see they really do exist. There are 7 of them. And there were times when my kids did the right thing and made the right choices, because I know I raised them to make those choices. And then there are times when my kids make some choices that just make me go, huh? What? You did what? Kind of like last week. And so I just want to remind our families that while we're here talking about disciplinary efforts and teaching our kids self-control and self-management and self-awareness, we do recognize that kids are kids. And here in Wayne Westland, we do know that. Doesn't mean they're absolved of their responsibility, but we do try to use every moment as a teachable moment. And everything that we're talking about today with all of these preventative measures, they really involve us thinking about how can we take every moment with the child and with their family and turn that into a teachable moment, and a moment that maybe you made this mistake today, but don't make it again. How about you not make it tomorrow? Make a different mistake tomorrow. Sometimes they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Very similarly with our kids. They do need that opportunity. There are some mistakes that you can't come back from. And I have to say that out loud, that while I do have a bleeding heart for children, I will not allow anyone to mistreat, abuse, or anything like that to my adults. They came here for a reason. They're here to do a job, and no one deserves to be mistreated when they're on their job. And so with that being said, we have a lot of great activities coming up with the graduations and the ceremonies and such. I hope that many people will be able to get out and support those activities. The last comment I want to make is that as we've been talking about a lot of the challenges that have happened over the years and making progress towards results, something I want to mention is that in these times, oftentimes folks have taken on roles that may not have fit what they were designed to do. So our administrators have taken on many additional roles. Our social workers have taken on additional roles. Our counselors have taken on additional roles. Our teachers have taken on additional roles. And we in central office, we recognize that, and we're working very hard to provide resources and strategies to acknowledge the burden that causes over time. It's okay to take on an extra role for a little while. It becomes a challenge if it's been 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years that we've taken on these additional roles. So we are cognizant of that, but it's going to take time to fix it. It's going to take time to change. And we understand that that time is not something we all have. And I hear you. I hear folks saying, we're moving at warp speed. I get it. I hear you. We are moving, and we are, to put some processes and procedures in place. You're absolutely right. Because if we can get those processes and procedures in place, then as we start to implement them and take the time, that's where it's going to take forever. Yes, it was very easy to say we're going to do instructional rounds. Now, to actually see the results of instructional rounds and the impact on student achievement, it's not going to happen overnight. So we had to get the process in right now. Same thing with behavior coaches. We're going to get the behavior coaches in there and get them trained, but it's not going to be overnight that all of a sudden everyone's going to be self-aware and responsible, and it's not going to happen. It's going to take us some time to implement that. So we are trying to put in those resources now, because I also heard our community when you said, hey, we need change yesterday. We're tired of this. We're tired of feeling like this. We're tired of being in these situations. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to present the dichotomy that it's put all of us in and acknowledge that we are listening here in central office. Our Board of Education is listening and advocating on a regular basis, and we understand that this is not easy, but I firmly believe as your leader that together we can push through anything. We have brilliant people here in this district. Brilliant minds that when everyone comes together, I've seen how fast it was in 2 or 3 months. Folks are dissecting Hess's cognitive rigor matrix and making those decisions automatically without us even needing the consultant. That only happens with brilliant people. I can tell you where I came from, it didn't happen that fast. It took us 2 years to get to the point where it took us 2 months here in Wayne Westland. I'm serious when I say we have brilliant people who work very hard. We just have to come together and be patient with one another, and I appreciate everything that we're doing. Congratulations, graduates. Congratulations, parents. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Moving on to item number 378.18, citizen comments, non-agenda items. I know you, I see you.
Been sitting there for 90 minutes, the back's passed. I do first want to thank the staff members that did reply to my emails and have spoken to me and gotten back with me. Just want to say that. Now you guys can start the clock.
Okay.
Okay, first I would like to talk about the walkthroughs. Do appreciate the presentations, and that did clear up a lot and gave me insightful information, thank you. But with the walkthroughs that the superintendents do and all the administration and everything that's gonna be going on, is the school administration and other staffs known about it prior to you guys coming? I understand that one example that you gave on the PowerPoint with the snapshot that there was no effective learning. That could be just one time. You're going to keep going back over and over. But also think of it as if they know about it, they might do things a little differently. If they know you might come into your classroom. A few months ago, I heard that the superintendent goes in. I did ask, is the school notified? Because if you're notified, things get a little, oh, we're on edge. Staff's coming, or you just show up. So please, I would like to know that, if at all possible. Going to the behavior coaches, hearing everybody discussion, I do agree and concur with everything. Please do make a note, yes, I've talked about the behavior issues of other things coming up, but in regards to tonight, there have been some staff, mainly myself, that have been kicked, spit on, and swore profanity directly yelled into my face while I have been a staff member. One time I was after my first surgery and I had a walking boot, was sitting down, morning kicked. I don't write kids up normally. It takes me a lot to write them up, but when I do, we're not told what happens to consequences. Those kids are hands off, you don't touch them, you let them do that. I'm not saying I've ever had my hands, I have seen it happen, but I've never been to that point that everybody was discussing. But I have been mistreated, been disrespected. I would like it noted that Wayne RESA has implemented at a few of the schools I don't really know the type, like conflict resolution, so that when you suspend a person, they come back, they have to meet with the person, conflict or whatever it is. I have never seen it happen that if it was to a staff or to that event that the student and the staff sit down. Never seen that. That might be something that, if this is looking forward, might help. Also, the last thing is, will the code of conduct book be changed to implement what the behavior is here? When you say you have benchmarks in a PowerPoint or something, maybe the code of conduct should be written and changed for the current school year, if that's even possible. So, just things of thought.
Thank you, Ms. Samples. Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to item number 379.18, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Dr. Weaver.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just want to say how excited I am about the presentations tonight. I think it's the right direction. I do have a few concerns, but there'll never be a time that we don't. So I think the direction is right. I think we're on task, and I especially love the piece where teachers are not looking at classroom visits as something evil. That's my words, not classroom teachers, but that the collaborative effort will be put into that, and I just think that is awesome. The only last thing I want to say, and I don't want to leave on a negative note, but here it is. Almost 14 years of board service. We always do distinguished alumni at both high schools on the same day and the same exact time, which precludes board members from getting to both places. So just wanted to say that, and good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Weaver. Mrs. Madison?
I'd like to thank everybody for their presentations tonight. It was wonderful, refreshing, and thank all of my fellow board members for the dialogue. It was wonderful, and I enjoy our next board study session. I wish we would have had this 5 years ago. I enjoy the interactive dialogue and being able to see what is happening and what's going on at a different level, and all of us being able to talk about it.
Mr. Cox?
I'd like to say thank you to our superintendent, who obviously does not have her head in the sand about the problems that we face. And what has it been, 6 months? 8 months? What are you doing with all your extra time? I appreciate your efforts. I
Thank you,
sincerely
sir.
do. I'd also like to express my well wishes to my colleague and friend Tom Buckaloo. Tom, get well soon, and I will take you out for coffee and whatever. Twice now, Melanie Hines has mentioned a child who is having behavioral issues as a consequence of not being able to get to. I would like to see what can we do, or how can we aid as a resource in making sure that this child has every opportunity. I know that's not our role specifically, but we have to, no doubt we could be a resource of some type to her family. I would certainly like to see that, happen. And I would like to, again, say thank you for your work in these presentations. We're not doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And I'm encouraged by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Hines?
This was an awesome meeting today. I love this perspective. I go out into the community and I tell them what Wayne Weston is doing. We are at the top of innovation, thinking outside the box. So this is excellent. You're doing an awesome job. You guys are doing an awesome job as well. Making sure, like Dr. Holt said, when she got here, she'll put the right people in the right positions, and you have done that. So we are very impressed with that. I also like to say I was really excited over the weekend. Ms. Jill and Maria, we were able to meet U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow. We were talking about after-school programs and how important it is. As a single mom, I felt the boat when my son lost Bright Futures, and it has been a big difference, like you said, with the, not having the socialization, even behaviors, even the grades. So she was telling us that we can meet with them. They found like extra money, like grant money for after school programs. So this is something that's really exciting. And like they're trying to get the Bright Futures back as well. But those are very important programs. And just like you said, like sometimes the students, and like you were saying earlier, they don't have those people at home to help them to make better decisions and just talking and showing that you care about them. So, I'm so excited about the direction this district is going. And Sally, you made some awesome comments as well. Everything is coming together, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this board.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mrs. Vidal?
Well, Mrs. Hines and I got a chance to go to a couple of concerts this last week and see our students at their best. So going forward, between now and the end of school, there's quite a few more going on. Just about every school has got third graders, fourth graders. Adams has got one coming up. Stevenson's got a play coming up too. And John Glenn's got a choir concert this week, so a lot of activities between now and then. Unfortunately, and I've notified the superintendent and our board president, because of my position as pastor of Methodist Church, I have to attend annual conference. It's a requirement for my position. And it happens to be the last week in May when all of our activities are going on, including graduation. Now, knowing how important graduation is, I did ask the bishop for dispensation in writing and got it, but it's just for that Saturday. So I need everybody to know that Carol shows up to everything. If it's physically possible, I will attend. But unfortunately, I'm going to miss a lot of things that I really love to go to because of my position. And, you know, when God calls you in a particular direction, you answer. And I'm being called to go to annual conference. So I will miss a few things, but I will be there for graduation. And I apologize to my fellow board trustees because you're going to have to pick up the slack and shake more hands.
The sashes will all be backwards.
Yeah, she fixes her.
I fix the hoods, exactly. You guys have better learn. One of these days I won't be here. So,
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fidel. So, as always, I appreciate everyone coming out. I just want to say, I know that we have been having a lot of meetings lately, but I think that it's important with all the changes and the things that are going on in the district that every board member is allowed an opportunity to hear what's going on and to be able to express how they feel about it. Especially, we're getting ready for some major changes in the bonds that's coming up, and so these are extra meetings are to help us to have a better understanding of what's going on. I also want to say that, just like everyone else, we're about to be on the run. We're gonna spend a lot of time together. For those who won't be there, Tom is trying his best, and I don't want him to do that. It's pushing himself. And Carol, we as board members, we're elected officials, but we have volunteered to be elected officials, and life gets in the way sometimes. And just like everyone else, just because we sit on this board, it doesn't exclude life and the things that happen. So we have good intentions and we really want to make everything, but sometimes you wake up that morning and you get that call that says you can't do it, and it's okay, we understand. And so with that being said, I look forward to spending the next 2 weeks with each and every one of you every single day.
Kind of you.
And thank you again. Thank you everyone for your presentations. You did an excellent job. You did an excellent of explaining it and answering our questions. And we really appreciate the time and effort because I know that this isn't done between 9 and 5. I do know that. And it's not done between Monday and Friday. I understand that. And so I thank you for the extra time that you have taken away from your families and the sacrifice that you have made to make this district a better place. So with that being said, at this time, I'll take a motion to
Sean, you
What?
remind him about the June 4th meeting being back on?
oh, yes. So, we got an email, but we might not have read it yet. We will be having a meeting on June 4th just because we have to go over some things that, on a time frame for the bond. Do you want to explain it a little bit different than what I'm saying, or am I saying it right? For the June 4th, it's revolved around the bond?
Yeah, it's really, you have to set the tax rates, and they have to be sent into the municipalities to be put on tax
Okay.
bills. So not probably what everybody wants, but it has to be done.
So it shouldn't be that long of a meeting, but it's a necessary meeting. So June 4th, we will be back here. And I know that that's coming right off of graduation, so
We're gonna keep it real simple.
we're gonna keep it simple, and we might not be looking as fresh as we normally do up here, because we'll be coming off of a tired week, but it's all good. So at this time, I'll take a motion to, where are we going, adjourn? Moved by Mrs. Madison, supported by Mr. Cox, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, we are adjourned for this evening, thank you.